A lot of people don't want to admit that they need help. And now all of a sudden, you're a very negative thinker, you get into these existential moods, you're late, you're showing up drunk, you're missing a lot of work. So instead of asking for help, because we live in this hustle culture, you always have to be okay, you always have to have things, just brushing your teeth, washing your face, lotioning your body. Just a person, you cannot create capacity within yourself that's not there. Okay, so here's a couple of behaviors you're going to start noticing when you've been chronically stressed out. So you've been stressed out for a long time and nothing's happening. You're going to experience poor sleep patterns, nightmares, night terrors, not sleeping, sleeping too much. Appetite changes. You're either going to eat too much or not enough, or you're going to binge restrict. You're going to notice that you go to the doctor a lot, body aches, problems with your period, health issues that you were not facing before. And we actually start getting worried when we start noticing that you have permanent changes in your thinking pattern. You used to think that life had a meaning, you understood what life was about, had hope, and you knew that challenges come and go, but things are going to be all right. And now all of a sudden, you're a very negative thinker, you get into these existential moods, you're just worried that something bad's going to happen. And you'll notice that your relationships also change. Maybe you're fighting more with your relatives, or you and your partner are going through a lot, or you start dating serially, or you stop dating altogether. We also note that there are issues at work. You're late, you're showing up drunk, you're missing a lot of work, the quality of your work just doesn't make sense, you're making mistakes in meetings, you're accidentally deleting files you need. So you just start having problems there, and you stop feeling like yourself, you stop really enjoying life, you just change. That's when we get concerned that, okay, you're no longer stressed, you're starting to show signs of a mental health problem. And your regular stress management techniques just are not working anymore. Like prayer is not working, listening to music not working, exercise, nothing. So that's a good time to start to consult a GP, to talk to a social worker. That's a good time to seek counseling. That's a good time to get assessed for whatever challenges you're having. A lot of people don't want to admit that they need help. And it's not because they're bad people or they think they're better than everyone else. It's because they genuinely cannot assess the point at which they are not coping anymore. They can't genuinely appreciate that, okay, from this point onwards, now I need help. Like maybe 2 months ago I was doing okay, but now I'm dropping the ball. So instead of asking for help, because we live in this hustle culture, you always have to be okay, you always have to have things perfect, you just push yourself to perform. And yeah, like it's a problem. So when regular stress management doesn't work anymore, you can think about introducing medication, counseling, different types of therapies. Because if you're struggling to sleep and a doctor prescribes sleeping pills, it might not change your whole situation, but at least you're less anxious and stressed because you had a good night's rest. That's the thing. Health services exist so that people can get help, because that's what we're in the business of, helping people. Okay, so the reason I made this video today is because a lot of us get really bogged down on definitions or diagnoses, like am I anxious, am I depressed, do I have insomnia? It doesn't really matter. Like, it matters in that it's up to your GP to assess and diagnose you for the purposes of medical aid and of getting the right treatment. But a lot of people do not fit a specific diagnostic criteria. You might have 2 or 3 characteristics of depression, but you actually don't really satisfy the criteria of a major depressive disorder diagnosis. And if it weren't for medical aids and diagnosis codes, a lot of people would be treated under general distress or general mental health distress. And a lot of psychotherapists, psychologists don't like to diagnose. Actually, they don't like to diagnose, but they have to diagnose for the sake of medical aid. Medical aid wants to know if you're depressed, if you have bipolar, if you're anxious. It wants to know. And that's for their stats and their bureaucratic whatever and their admin and whatever. But in real life counseling, we don't have an emphasis of diagnosis. But I think it is important for people to learn when they need help. When is it becoming too much? And the general principle in mental health is that as soon as you stop functioning, as soon as you stop being able to complete the everyday tasks you need to complete, there's a problem. Okay, so now it's the exciting part, guys. I'm going to teach a little bit of OT, occupational therapy theory. So OTs or occupational therapists are functional experts. So we help people become more functional when they have experienced an event, an illness, an injury that stops them from being functional. And how do we measure function? So in the slides, I've created 5 general areas. Obviously, in OT, we have different terminology for them. But think about it like this. It doesn't matter what's wrong with you. But if you can't get up in the morning and brush your teeth, wash your face, put on clean clothes, and look presentable, you don't have to even look fancy. Just not wear dirty clothes. If you can't even do that, that's when we know there's a problem. So that's how we measure when we need to start intervening. Because there are people out there who experience hallucinations or perceptual disturbances. They hear voices, maybe they have a spiritual calling, an ancestral gift, but they are able to go to work, they are able to study, they are able to continue with hobbies, social participation, errands. They get up every morning, they look good. Does that person really need mental health assistance? Because they're fine, they're happy. So in the diagram, you'll see that I've listed grooming, errands, sleep, rest, work, school, play, social participation, and hobbies. So as you start getting sick, as you start needing help, you're going to fall into that gray area where I told you you're going to have problems with your appetite and your relationships and whatever. The first thing we see often that starts falling apart is the social participation and hobbies. People who are anxious, people who are depressed, people who have mental health problems usually don't want to hang out with their friends. They don't want to ride their bike. They don't want to watch TV. Unless it's something they're not really interested or something that brings them comfort. It's not really a hobby. What other hobbies are there? They don't really bake anymore. You had this colleague, every Monday she bakes for you. When she's feeling unwell, she stops. Like it's taking all of her energy just to do everything, and she just doesn't have spare energy for a bride, for baking, for this person's baby shower. Some people stop going to church. Some people stop attending family meetings. This is common in teenagers. Teenagers start isolating. They don't want to even watch the news with you guys because emotionally just a lot's happening. Okay, so usually that's the first thing that falls off. It's the social participation and the hobbies. And that's where it usually starts. Then people start experiencing problems with work and school. I'm talking about adults and adolescents, teenagers. Schoolwork drops, school marks are dropping, mistakes at work, disciplinary hearings, fighting with this colleague, arriving drunk, arriving late, whatever. Okay, and then remember for children, the main occupation for children, the main thing children are supposed to do in their life is play. Even though we add other things like school and whatever, they're supposed to play. So if you see a young child who doesn't really play anymore, they don't want to be outside, they just want to be indoors and watch TV and they look sad, that's when we start knowing there's a problem. When the children don't play as much as they used to, or their appetite for play changes. And then another big area is sleep or rest. People are not aware, but sleep is actually a very active cognitive process. So when we're sleeping, our brains are very active and they're doing a lot of repair work, and we're processing our day, processing our emotions. As soon as you start feeling sick, something happens there. Some people start having nightmares. I'm that type. I start talking in my sleep. Nightmares every other day or every day, night terrors. Either I struggle to sleep or I sleep during the day. Just sleep. There's a problem there. And people who are mentally ill can't rest. Okay? They don't do much, but they don't rest. Because Rest is a choice. So rest is when you give yourself time not to work. But because they don't do much, they're still overthinking. They're still lying in bed. They're still beating themselves up. It's not a restful process. And then when we know that things are getting really, really bad, like the thought of going to Pick n Pay and grabbing a few things and coming back home to cook, like you cannot do that. Either you're too anxious to leave the house, or you're too scared, or you just don't have the energy. You can't help your kids with their schoolwork, you just general errands. And this is an upgrade of the basic ADLs, activities of daily living. This is an upgrade of just brushing your teeth, washing your face, lotioning your body. So it's taking it a little bit further, like adulting stuff, the stuff people are always complaining about, like renewing your passport and I don't know, man, buying things like, okay, like for me, for example, I need to get magrams for my car, and I'm not, but it's hard. Like when I'm having a bad day, the last thing on my mind is going to Tire Mart and fixing my car and having my oil changed. Like you just want to get through the day. If you have enough energy, go to work and come back and pass out. And every day you might notice there are little bursts of energy, but basically this is what I'm trying to say. The functional, healthy person can do all of these things well. Even though it's not perfectly, they can do it well. They know how to balance errands, raising the kids, exercise, sleep. Yeah, sorry, I got cut off, guys. So basically that's what I was saying. A healthy, functional person is coping with all these areas of occupation with relative ease and success. So with me, I'm a more functional person now despite living with mental health problems. And that's because of medication. That's because of continuous therapy. That's because I had to change some of my thinking patterns, and I had to get a lot of treatment. So I did finally satisfy the criteria of a functional person. It's just because I had a mental health problem, I needed extra supports. I need medication. I sometimes need help sleeping. I need to make sure I exercise. So that's the skill that the person who's struggling with mental health has to learn. How can they build these new coping strategies to face the problems that they're having in their life? The thing with people is this: people forget that just a person, you cannot create capacity within yourself that's not there. Like if you're not coping with grade 11, for example, you cannot press a button inside yourself that makes you cope. And like that's what you get a lot in the consulting room, where people are just like, well, I just have to get through it. Well, I just have to cope. And it's like, well, but you're not. And they're like, well, I just have to. And it's like, you're not. And they're like, I know, but I just have to. And like, it's about having that insight into ourselves and our behavior and our relationship, and admitting that, okay, like now I'm taking a beating. Like now it's getting intense. There's this saying that happens, or that is said a lot in the mental health community: be kind to yourself. And it sounds really easy, like, oh, just be kind to yourself. But people are not kind to themselves, myself included. So try and imagine another person in your shoes. Like if someone came to you and told you, I'm struggling to sleep, I just have no energy lately, I'm making all these mistakes at work, I volunteered for this project and I just can't cope with it, I'm crying all the time, I don't know what to do. What would you say to such a person? You wouldn't just say, well, you just have to cope, because that's what people say to themselves, like, just do it, just cope. You would say, take a step back, relax, recover. When someone's exercising and they're complaining of pain and they're tired, low energy, I feel dizzy, we say to them, hey, sit down, drink some water, here's Powerade. So try and make all your mental health problems or all your stress problems, and try and make them more practical. Like maybe someone who's going through a hard time doesn't have to be the best employee of the month. They don't have to like spearhead every single project, and they don't have to help their kids with every single homework assignment. They can cook maybe 3 times a week instead of 5. So instead of forcing ourselves to come up with this capacity that we simply don't have, because if you had the capacity, you just cope. You're not coping. We should just learn to look at these areas in our lives and ask ourselves, like, am I coping? Like, do I feel connected socially? I used to be able to go to baby showers and come back and feel okay. How do I feel now? Why does the thought of this birthday party just make me, I just don't want to go? And once you start having those feelings and those conversations with yourself, that's a good place to start, whether you're unsure, when you're unsure whether or not you need mental health help. Guys, that's it from me today. Today's a short one. If you have any questions, please email me at becomingshika@gmail.com. That's for general questions you have regarding mental health, emotional health, general well-being. If you have any questions for me, or you want to consult or something, I do have an email that I use for my private practice. That's info.shikaot@gmail.com. I'm most active there. I also have a phone number for that, which will be in the description. And please share with your friends and family and people who you think are struggling, but like you can't really convince or make a case with them as to why you think they need help. Because at the end of the day, you're not really a mental health practitioner unless you are, and you don't always have the words to say, like, I can see you're not okay, you're acting like this. You don't always know the why of the problem. So when you have a nice template like those areas of occupation I showed you, that like, remember you used to do this, remember you said this, now you're not sleeping, like, once you show that person you think needs help, maybe it will click in their mind that, okay, maybe I should consult, or I should consider counseling, or getting a second opinion, or getting some kind of healthcare or medical intervention. All healthcare professionals exist because people have problems. We're here to help. We're not here to tell you how to live your life, but we want you to be functional and productive. That's why we're here. So please use our services. Please, 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 guys, use our services and use people you trust, and make sure they're registered with the HPCSA. Please, please, that's the one thing you have to do for yourself. That's all from me. Have a good morning, evening, or night, and see you next week Sunday. Good night. No, wait. It might not be nighttime. Goodbye, guys.
Hey, Miss Walker, thank you for wanting a verse from me. Apologies for the wait, sometimes it's hard to